Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. It is that time of year, so it's only fitting that I should jump back on here to do this tag. And before I get into the questions, I wanted to say a really big thank you to anyone who commented on my most recent video where I was just having a bit of a outpouring of things that had been on my mind. And yeah, I had filmed that video and edited it and got it scheduled to go up, and then I was having second thoughts about whether to actually have it go ahead or not, and I considered just not posting it at all. And anyway, I hummed and hawed about it for a while and decided we're just going to put it out there. I need to get these things off my chest and just put them out into the world. And I really didn't know what kind of response I would get. I hoped, there would be some nice comments because I know plenty of nice people through BookTube, but I honestly expected more of a quit your complaining type of reaction as well. So I was actually really surprised to not get anything like that. But instead, everyone has been super kind, really supportive and encouraging. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I really, really do appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch that video and to comment. It really did mean a lot to me to, see so much support and just nice people out there. It really meant a lot to me. So a big thank you. And yeah, things have been, as life tends to be, things have just been kind of up and down, but I think taking a break was the right decision for me. I just needed some time off, just some time to myself to, deal with things. And like right now, I feel like I'm in a better place than I was a month ago or whatever, so I'll take that. But yeah, I have been seeing the mid-year freakout tag going around recently and have been enjoying watching other people's videos, and I just got in the mood to film, so I figured I should jump on that urge and actually film something. So here we are. So let's do this. Question 1 is best book you've read so far in 2021, and I think I've read maybe 39 or 40 books so far this year, and out of those I had 2 5-star reads. So those 2 are Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite and The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. Lost Souls was a reread for me. I loved it the first time round and I loved revisiting it. And The Hellbound Heart was actually a first time read for me. I loved the film Hellraiser and I loved Clive Barker, but for whatever reason hadn't read this until recently. But yeah, I knew I would love it and I did. It was brilliant, so highly recommend these 2. Question 2 is best sequel you've read so far in 2021, and I'm not much of a series reader to begin with, and I had to scroll through my list of books that I've read. I've only read 1 sequel, and it is book 8 of the Power series by Jessie Harris. This is the final book in the series, The Obsession. It is a 90s YA series about a teenage psychic, and each book, it follows, the various adventures she gets into. And yeah, it's been a really fun series. I've really enjoyed it. And this was the final one, which wasn't my favourite book in the series, but it was still a really good read. And yeah, by default, with it being the only sequel I've read this year, it is also the best sequel I've read this year. Although now that I'm saying that, it's not really a sequel because the books are kind of standalones, but they are within a series, so it's really the only answer I have for this question. Question 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to, and it's probably got to be the book everyone has been talking about recently, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. I'm a big fan of weird punk books, so when I saw their releasing of this book and I read the synopsis, I was like, yes, that sounds like my cup of tea. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on it just yet, but I am very much intrigued to do so. Question 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I honestly didn't have anything on my radar, and I did a quick Google around to see if anything looked interesting, and yeah, not to say that there aren't any interesting looking books coming out, but nothing that was really like grabbing me, so I honestly don't have an answer for this. And I'm sure there are plenty of upcoming releases that I'm not even aware of, so yeah. Question 5 is biggest disappointment, and I only had one DNF so far this year, but it was The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. And previously I had only read Interview with the Vampire by her, but I really enjoyed it. And this is like a big book. It's like, I think 1,000 pages long. And I'm really intrigued by the premise of this. It's about witches and this kind of, you know, multi-generational story. And someone on Instagram was doing a read-along of it, so I thought this is a great opportunity for me to finally pick it up. But yeah, I got like a third of the way in and I just wasn't feeling it. And it's a shame because some of it I really did love. Like, I think the opening chapter was brilliant, it really hooked me in, and there are definitely some parts of the book that I really, really enjoyed and some elements of the book that I thought were really fascinating. But there were certain parts of the book and certain chapters that were just so long-winded and drawn out and honestly boring, and yeah, it just became a slog to read. I just wasn't enjoying it enough to keep going with it, so the prospect of having only got 1/3 of the way through and having 2/3 left to go just wasn't something I wanted to spend my time doing, so I ended up putting it down, which is a shame, but yeah, have to admit I was a bit disappointed in this one. Question 6 is biggest surprise, and I'm going with Consumed by David Cronenberg. This is one I just read recently and I absolutely loved it, and I'm a huge fan of Cronenberg's films. He's probably one of my favourite filmmakers, and I knew he had written a novel that came out a few years ago, and so naturally was really interested in it, but for whatever reason hadn't picked it up at the time, and it doesn't have good ratings. So I kind of got it in my head that maybe, you know, just because you have a talent at writing and directing films, you know, that might not necessarily translate to literature. So I kind of thought, well, I don't want to read it and be disappointed by his work, so I just won't read it. But anyway, I got it back on my radar again and got intrigued by it again, and a friend of mine very kindly sent me this book, so that was awesome, and I'm so glad I picked it up because I loved it. This was a 4.5 star read for me, and yeah, it's not too often I rate books over 4 stars, so this was awesome. He is definitely a talented author, and I have a lot to say about this book, but I just don't really know where to start and how to say it concisely. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that and say that I loved it, and I guess it was my biggest surprise because I went into it with kind of low expectations and ended up loving it. Question 7 is favourite new author, either debut or new to you. One of them is The Mud Ballad by Jo Quinnell, and the other is Water Shall Refuse Them by Lucy McKnight Hardy. These were both awesome books. The Mud Ballad is about conjoined twins and the circus and death and resurrection maybe, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So good, so unique, and yeah, such a great read. And Water Shall Refuse Them is set in the UK in the 1970s during a heatwave, and it's got elements of folk horror and witchcraft. It is pretty dark. It does have some animal cruelty in it, so might not be for everyone, but yeah, another one that I loved. And I very much look forward to reading more by both of these authors. Okay, question number 8 is newest fictional crush. And yeah, most of us horror people are like, yeah, don't really have an answer for this. But I did have a good think about it, and I was like, you know what? Right at the end of chapter 1 of The Hellbound Heart, there's a female Cenobite, and it was just that first chapter is just amazing by itself, and then yeah, the way it ends, I was just like, yeah, okay, that's pretty crush worthy. Question number 9 is newest favourite character, and that's a really difficult question because I've read so many, but kind of going with like what a horror fan would maybe like in a character. You know, they're not my favourite because they're really great people, but they're my favourite because they're awful people and their stories are fascinating. So I've gone with 2 kind of creepy kids. One of them is Laura in The Voice of the Clown by Brenda Brown Canary, and one is a teenager, I think his name was Tom, in Such Nice People by Sandra Scopatone. So yeah, these are 2 characters who do some pretty wacky things, and yeah, they're pretty dark, and I really enjoyed reading about them. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I think towards the end of Fatal Secrets by Richie Tankersley Cusick, this, yeah, I got a bit teary-eyed at this one. It was a bit emotional, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ashamed to admit that. But yeah, this was such a great read. It had everything you could want from a point horror book. So if you haven't read it and you want some 90s YA goodness in your life, then I recommend this one. Question 11 is book that made you happy. And again, like with horror, we don't really read to be happy, you know? So instead I went with books that made me feel something quite intensely. But yeah, that thing is maybe not happiness, but more like feelings of dread and discomfort. So yeah, you know, they're the things that we want. So one of them is The Wood Witch by Stephen Gregory. This is about a man who takes a kind of holiday in the middle of nowhere in the woodlands in Wales, and he starts this project to grow a wood witch, which is another term for a stinkhorn mushroom. It's a very phallic fungi, and yeah, this one was pretty unique and very dark, and I liked it a lot. And the other one is Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. This is about a group of teenagers who start using this drug, and there is also a bunch of suicides happening in their small town. And yeah, it's told from the different perspectives of each character. And yeah, this was like such a weird one and really unique again. But yeah, definitely goes to some strange and dark places, and it was awesome. Question 12 is favourite book to film adaptation you saw this year. And I had a quick scan through my letterboxd to see what I'd actually watched this year and if any of them were actually film adaptations. The only one that really jumped out that I actually enjoyed was the Spanish version of Dracula. So this was actually filmed at the same time as the original Dracula, the Todd Browning 1931, was it? Dracula that stars Bela Lugosi, but there was also a Spanish production that was filmed at the same time using the same sets, and yeah, I mean, that's just such a cool concept, like that was even a thing is really interesting to me, and I'd been wanting to check it out for quite a while, and yeah, finally did earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely had its own kind of style going on, even within, you know, using the same sets and stuff. I think I do prefer the Bela Lugosi one, but yeah, if you're interested in Dracula, then I would definitely still recommend checking out the Spanish version. Okay, we've just got a few more questions to go. Question 13 is favourite video you've made so far this year. And yeah, I guess a couple, maybe my Voice of the Clown review where I dressed up as a clown. That was quite fun to do. Got a few dislikes though. I mean, the clue is in the thumbnail. If you're not into clowns, then like don't watch the video. Don't come to a clown video and dislike it. Just jog on, okay? And then there were a couple of other ones I made in February to celebrate Black History Month and Women in Horror Month. I did a couple of just, recommendation videos of books and films. And again, they actually ended up being some of my most disliked videos of this year, which is fun. And yeah, weird that they're some of my favourites, but yeah, go figure. Anyway, I put a lot of time and effort into those videos. I was really pleased with the recommendations I'd come up with. They're not the exact same lists that you always hear in those particular, subgenres or whatever. So I was like really pleased with what I'd come up with, and I was really proud of the videos. And then, yeah, they didn't get that many views, and then of those views I got a bunch of dislikes, and I'm just like, well, that's very disheartening, isn't it? So, but yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. But of course, those recommendations are relevant at any time of year, so if you're looking for any, feel free to go check them out. Question 14 is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. And I have ended up kind of buying and accumulating quite a lot of books so far this year, and so it's kind of hard to just pick one because there are a lot of awesome covers amongst them. But if I were to pick one, I ended up going with this one, Garden of Evil by Edmund Plant. I mean, just look at this guy. We've got this doll head which is like cracked, and then there's these creepy teeth behind the mouth, and then we've got this amazingly detailed scary plant thing going on. Yeah, such a great cover. And I haven't read this one yet, but it sounds really good, so I'm looking forward to it. And the last question, number 15, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, that is the question. So many books, and I've already reached that point where I'm realising I'm just not going to get to all of the books I wanted to get to this year. So yeah, that's always a bit disappointing, but there are only so many hours in the day, and yeah, too many books to read. I do want to read some more point horror books. I have been slowly working my way through reading/rereading them over, quite a few years now, and I still have quite a few of them to get through. So I definitely want to, get to some more of them by the end of the year. And I'm also looking forward to diving into some extreme horror, which is, a subgenre that I've read some books that fall into that category, but not like a ton. And yeah, there are a bunch of titles that I've been really wanting to get to for quite some time, so I'm going to try and get to all of those soon. I'm just having like an extreme horror month, and I'll see how many of them I can get to, so that should be fun / disturbing. And yeah, other than that, I mean, there are so many books that I own or even don't own but really want to read, so yeah, I mean, we will see what I get to by the end of the year. So that is the mid-year freak out tag done and dusted. The light here has just, the battery's died, and I'm like right at the end of the video, so I figured it's not really worth me going to like charge the battery up just to film the outro. So apologies, but the half shadow look is, let's work with it. So yeah, anyway, sorry this video has probably been a little rambly. I'm still, I guess, maybe I'm a bit rusty after not filming for a while. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been fun actually getting back in front of the camera for a little bit, and yeah, hopefully this video has maybe given you some recommendations. So yeah, do let me know if you're thinking of picking any of these up, or if you've already read them. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!